Calling all technology coaches. Join Fort Edge this summer for a 2-day coaches camp packed with high-quality professional development exclusively for you. Attendees will work with like-minded coaches on creating strategies for teacher relationships, executing coaching cycles, and building a culture of coaching and tech integration within their school or district. There are 2 opportunities to attend Coaches Camp this summer. Join us either June 25 and 26 in New Orleans prior to ISTE 2022 or in Cincinnati on July 28 and 29. Please visit fort-edge.net/coachcamp to reserve your spot today.
Aloha, I'm Katie Ritter.
And I'm Justin Thomas, and this is the Restart Recharge podcast, a podcast by coaches for coaches. We bring you the tips and tricks to help you in your everyday work as an instructional technology coach, or whatever they call you in your school district.
So hopefully you're going to leave this episode with us today feeling just a little bit less on your own coaching island.
We have an exciting episode today because coaching really should be a team sport. Unfortunately, this isn't always the case. For many coaches, they might be the only one in their building or even in the district. So in this episode, listeners will hear a first-hand account of how one coach was able to kick off a coaching program in our district that will be expanding after just 1 year with the addition of added coaches in that district. So we'll hear her success and fail forward moments that made up her first year as a coach. So let's welcome in Roxy Thompson. Roxy currently serves as an ed tech specialist for Washington Elementary School District in Glendale, Arizona. She has been in this position for the past 3 years. This year, she took on an additional role as the district's first instructional technology coach with a focus on working one-to-one with teachers to drive impactful technology use. Roxy spent the majority of her time this year supporting teachers in the district's first distance learning program for families who chose a full-time online learning environment for their students. Prior to this, she spent 8 years teaching social studies at the elementary and middle school levels. Roxy is passionate about empowering teachers to utilize technology to create powerful learning experiences for students. So welcome in, Roxy.
Hi there. It's so funny listening to like your own bio.
It is.
I'm excited to be here.
We
Awesome.
are so excited to have you. You are a rock star, Roxy, and our team has gotten an opportunity to connect with you online in kind of a number of ways at this point. So we are super excited to finally have you on the podcast.
Yeah, I know. I was like talking about this before, but it's so funny like seeing you guys and like talking to you instead of it just being like coming out of my phone as I get ready for work in the morning. So this is fun. Like this.
That's funny.
Awesome. Well, Roxy, we did give you a little bit of an expansive, should say, kind of background on what you do, but is there anything that you would like to add about your background in education and in your current role that you have now?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I like to share, especially when I'm coaching new teachers that are maybe struggling, is I had a really rough first year teaching. And I know, it's normally challenging for new teachers. But about halfway through my first year, I actually was seriously thinking of quitting. Like I was exhausted. I, was trying to balance the planning and the grading and, getting back to parents and the PD. And there was a point when I thought like, maybe this was a mistake. Maybe I just can't do this. Maybe I need to get out of teaching. And luckily had an amazing mentor teacher who worked with the new teachers. And so he stayed super late one night. We planned a week's worth of emergency sub lessons, and they gave me kind of a mental health week to kind of, get my head straight, really think about things. And the supervisor for my student teaching program happened to be a principal that year. So she said, come down to my school. I want you to see some social studies teachers because that's what I was teaching at the time. And, I want you to go in different classrooms, see what's going on, and then let's talk after. And so I went for the day and visited classrooms, and it was amazing. It was amazing because every single teacher taught a different way. Like it looked so different in every single classroom, and I enjoyed every single one of them, but their styles of teaching, the way they set up their lessons was different. Like everything was so different. And when we talked after, she was kind of like, so what's your biggest takeaway? And I'm like, that there's not like a right way to do this, right? Like there are different ways that you can teach, and it's going to look different depending on your students and your personality and what you're bringing. And so I went back. I didn't quit. I made it through that first year. was actually when I kind of got into hiking, because every Sunday I would hike this mountain where I could physically see that school, like looking really small down below me, and be like, okay, I can get through this week, like I can make it. And then I moved from that school to a different school, moved from middle school down to fifth grade, which I fell in love with, and kind of found a home there in my new school. But, you know, I like to share that with newer teachers, because I think sometimes they think that people that get into these roles like have these beautiful unicorn rainbow, like
Yeah.
start their teaching career. And it wasn't like that at all. And I think, it was a struggle, but it's definitely helped me. It's helped me empathize with teachers that are struggling, but I think it also kept me going through this first year of coaching when there were like a lot of similarities in some of those challenges. So that's a little bit of background. So if you're out there and you're having a rough first year or third year or eighth year, sometimes a change of scenery, a change of just mindset, can really help reset you and get you back on the right path, and hopefully staying in teaching in some capacity.
I love that. Well, one, thank goodness you stayed,
Yeah.
because you are a phenomenal educator. And just what I've seen of your coaching work, I know that that has translated to, to your coaching. But I feel like we almost need to like hit the pause button, let that be
Yep.
its own little episode that goes out. So it's just a quick, like, couple minute pep talk for people. But Roxy, will you also share your social media handles so people can like hit the pause button, go follow you? Or come back after the episode to give you a follow?
Yeah, so I'm at Roxy_Thompson, because some Roxy Thompson out there had already taken the
Don't
the
you
one without
hate
the
that?
underscore.
I know, that's why mine's
So,
really weird.
I know when Ben Sondergrath is talking about having a unique name, I'm like, man, that would be really helpful,
Yeah.
when we media handles. So I'm at Roxy_Thompson on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram at the same one. I think there's a TikTok account, but like, hilariously, I didn't set it up with some sort of backup with a phone or an email, so I can't get into my own account anymore because I can't remember what the password was.
Oh, I hate that
So,
too.
yeah, so I might have to start a new one with a different handle, but Twitter is primarily where I live for the most part. But I also have been I've been trying to do some Instagramming, and that's a little bit more of a mix of like education slash hiking slash my husky puppy. So that one has a little bit more of a mix.
I love it. We can all use more puppies in our life, so that's
Yeah.
good.
That is for sure. Roxy, do you want to explain a little bit more about the culture of coaching that you've begun to create at your school district?
Yeah, so when I moved from the classroom into my coaching role, it was actually it was a social studies / ed tech coaching role, and there's another person who is ELA / ed tech coaching, and halfway through the year they decided to rearrange that, and she was going to be just ELA / social studies, and then I would be full-time ed tech. So the idea was for there to be more coaching, because traditionally I think the people that were on that team had just done more traditional training, right? Where they, got in front of the educators and took them through some PowerPoints. And the person that was the coordinator at the time of EdTech really wanted to bring more coaching in. I started that year, that was the year of COVID. So my first year there, in this new role, like trying to figure out what I was doing, having no experience with an ed tech coach, like on the teacher side, like I didn't really know what that should look like. And so I tried some things at the beginning of the year, mostly just like throwing a million things at these poor teachers, like here's Google Maps, and here's how you can make timelines, and here's, all these different tech tools that I loved using, kind of throwing them at them. And it wasn't working. Like, I mean, they were very nice and they were like, oh, that's kind of a cool idea, and then went about their ways, right? And like nothing seemed to be translating into implementation. And I didn't know why. Like I couldn't figure out why. I didn't know like strategies to help move from, here I'm showing you things, to like now you start doing that in your classroom. And then COVID happened. Ironically, right before that, they were trying to downsize for budget reasons. And as the newest person, I was going to be let go. So I found that out like February, right before COVID hit.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I'd actually already started, interviewing at other school districts, trying to prepare. And then all of a sudden they were like, hold up, maybe we're going to go ahead and keep you.
Yeah, we need
We're
to
in like
rethink the plan.
lockdown. Yeah. So that ended up working out. But it was also at that same time that Google came out with their certified coach curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And, I saw it on Twitter and was like, well, that sounds, interesting. And so I looked at it, and at first sight, I was like, holy cow, like this is a lot. I mean, in comparison to like the trainer program, especially, like it was like full on modules and curriculums, and all these resources. But as I started going through it, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is like what I have been looking for, is some like concrete research backed ideas of like what actually works when you're trying to get people to integrate technology in meaningful ways, when you're trying to go from just showing them tools to them actually using them. And so I was like, yes, this is what I've been looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And around that time, you guys started doing, your webinars. And I was like, yes, like, there are people attending. As I'm seeing people's names in there, I'm like trying to find them on Twitter and see like, what are they doing? Like, what things are they sharing? And that the EC Open Chat came out of that too, which was a group of educators going through the Google certified coaching program, and decided to start like these book studies, and like, people were meeting together. So I joined that. I mean, I was just looking for anything. Like I will join anything. I will talk to anyone.
Yeah, you're like a coach sponge.
Yeah. Yes. And I think it coincided too with like being in lockdown and like wanting to find ways to connect with people,
Sure.
any way that you could. So it all kind of just came together in sort of a perfect way. And so that was what I took back to my school. Once I kind of felt like I had a solid understanding of like the things I needed at least to get going, right? Like I knew I'd keep coming back to that curriculum because some of the stuff I was like, but it was because I hadn't quite gotten there, like in my coaching journey. But I had at least enough to kind of like plant a seed. And we had just gotten a new director. So, I was trying to sell it to her basically, why we might need this. And so I sat down and made this little like table where I had like, okay, here are the like challenges we're facing as a district, and here's how this coaching program could like meet each one of these challenges. And then I had, some coworkers like poke holes in it and leave comments and, give suggestions, and like, where do you think they're gonna like, what parts of this is like, doesn't sound right, or is it gonna rub people the wrong way? Luckily I have colleagues that are like very honest and aren't afraid to give constructive feedback. So that's what came out of it. It was this Google Doc of like, here's what I think this could look like. A lot of it was based on the Google certified coaching program, but with like some twists that I knew would fit better with like our school district.
Yeah.
And then some of the like ISTE coaching standards language, because it sounded good and they liked that. And it had some like keywords, I think, that aligned to things that like they wanted to accomplish in the district. So that was it. It was a doc, and I emailed it and crossed my fingers and got back an email that said like, I like this, like, let's keep talking about this. And I was like, yes. So that was the little seed. That's kind of how the whole thing started.
That's awesome. There's so much there that I want to like dig into more. Like you said, that's just like so good. But first thing you said kind of at the beginning, I think you pointed out like a really key piece, that there was a lot of training going on, and a lot of like, here's this tech tool, but there wasn't so much coaching, and there wasn't as much like transferring it back to the classroom, and like true coaching solves that transfer problem, of like actually like helping them learn the skills, master the skills, but then actually like by transfer problem, I mean like transfer those skills to the classroom and actually implement the skills. So I think that's awesome. And I think that is a challenge that a lot of coaches face, where they haven't started more of like, we call them formal coaching cycles, is like what we call what the Google's Google coaching model is. But they haven't started these formal coaching cycles, and they are really just doing trainings or kind of like quick flyby help, especially if they're more of a tech coach rather than like a content coach. And so, they aren't making as much of an impact into that instruction if they're not actually doing the coaching work, which is that deeper work. So I love that you kind of pointed that out. And I know, I know it's a challenge, especially for coaches in like really large districts. They're responsible for so many teachers. Like, where do we find the time to do this? But, we preach all of the time, like coaching cycles are worth it. You will see the impact. So I love hearing that, like from your perspective too, how that just kind of like shifted what was happening across the board for you. And kudos to you for all of like the research and the work that you put into it. It's easy to say like, wow, what a dream scenario. Like you asked for it and your boss said yes, and like you moved forward, but you put in all the hard work to like make that conversation happen. So kudos to you for that.
Yeah, there was a lot of like moments after someone had like poked holes, and I just sat there and went like, maybe I should just go back to the training and the PowerPoints, and like maybe this isn't gonna work. But yeah, so it definitely wasn't some smooth unicorn ride. There were a lot of moments when you think like, is this gonna happen? Like what am I doing? Like, am I putting all this work into it? Is this just gonna like fall apart, or is this not gonna work? But like I had a lot of people in the coaching program that I was going through it with, at the same time we were doing that book study together. So we would meet on Google Meets and talk about, some of the challenges we were having. And some of them were just in my same position, like trying to sell people they needed to sell on this idea.
Yeah.
And so, you had people there that were like, yes, like keep at it, don't give up. And so that was really helpful.
Yeah. Well, I think
really,
if we,
really important to me.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know that anything I've done in my life that's been worthwhile that I haven't had those moments of like, oh my God, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Is this worth it? Have I lost it? It's not worth it, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think if you're having a smooth unicorn ride, then like you're not doing the right thing.
So something's going on here.
Something's not right. Okay, so Roxy, off the podcast, you have shared with us and with me personally that your team is now expanding. So you went from like, hey, I want to do this. You just shared you almost the position got cut. So you were like facing that to like this position needs, and the work I'm doing needs like to be rejuvenated. So I'm making a bigger impact to now you are now adding how many coaches to the team?
What right now we're adding just one more.
Okay, so still just one more is like don't say just because you're growing by 100%. But that is huge to even add like any coaches to the team. So if you could talk about like how did you go about advocating for not just like what it should look like and for yourself, but like how did you go about advocating like adding to the team? I mean, there are so many coaches that need more of them in their district. So talk us through like what that looked like to you and anything major that sticks out as like a big contributor to your success.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest contributor is like that I got a chance to put it in action and people saw it. Like, so I didn't have to sell it as much as like the coaching kept our distance learning program like afloat. I think that was a large I think people could see the impact that it had. We actually have, so there's technically like three of us. I have a coworker, Mike Hannon, and he is traditionally more comfortable like in the training role. Like we always talk about like how, we kind of complement each other in that way. Like he feels more comfortable in sort of those more traditional trainings that you do for teachers. And for a lot of teachers, they like that. I mean, there's a lot of our teachers that like love going to Mike Hannon because of the way he can break things down and explain it like step by step by step. So he's amazing. We had another person on the team that left at the beginning of the year. So we were going to try to fill that role, but it was so difficult because most of the people applying were teachers in our district, and there was no way they were going to let a teacher out of the classroom because we're so short, So we were like, let's talk about what we want this team to look like towards the end of the year, and then we'll repost it. And so my boss, her feeling was, this coaching model that we've been using with the distance learning teachers has worked so well. Like, that's what we need to replace this person with, which was not really what he was doing. We used to call him the architect. He was really great at like building websites, and he was amazing. But like in classroom coaching, the way that like, we were looking at doing, that wasn't really what he had done with that role. So my boss felt like we need another coach. Like, we need someone else that's going to do the same thing so we can take this out and spread it out into the district. So I think part of what sold people that needed to be sold on expanding the coaching program was that they saw what could happen if you really worked closely one-on-one with teachers. Like, if we had someone in there that established relationships with these teachers, that got to know them, that were in their classrooms, seeing what was going on, seeing the context of, the learning and the teaching, and then able to help those teachers look for new ways to use technology, or, think about how they could solve problems with technology-based solutions. And they just saw the results of that. And so my boss and her boss, really felt like this is something we need to take out, spread out in the district, and try this and see what this will work and look like in brick and mortar classrooms.
I love that. Well, and I think it, because anyone can go around saying like, we need another me, but it's, you've got to like, proof has to be in the pudding there, right? And like, we've got to like show the impact. Was there anything that you did that you could think of, even like the smallest nugget could be helpful to another listener out there? Like, were you tracking the data or teacher growth in any way, or like what you were doing with teachers? Did you like present that to, like how did the people above you know what was happening in these coaching cycles? What did that look like for you?
A lot of word of mouth. Every time like my supervisor would talk to the teachers, they would tell her like, Roxy's been so helpful is the things she kept saying to me, which was amazing because, when you're in the thick of things, and especially just the crazy year we've had, and all the things that were going on with trying to keep this distance learning program afloat, there's days when you're like, am I doing anything? Like, am I helping anyone?
Yeah.
There's like an endless amount of like emails coming in, and texts coming in from teachers and phone calls, and you never feel like you can give anyone enough time or enough support. And so every once in a while she'd be like, hey, like, you're helping people, like I just want you to know that you're helping people. So that was great. I think a huge one, and I know in a previous, you had some previous episodes about this, but the admin support and the admin relationships, that was huge this year. And I don't think it's something I thought about in years before, like about proactively trying to establish relationships with the principals at these schools. I kind of thought like, well, my job here is to support teachers. Like, sure, I'll be nice and I'll be polite, obviously. Like, I want them to let me in the door. But I hadn't really thought about like, how do I actually form relationships with these people in a way that's going to allow me to work more closely with their teachers, and want them to invite me back and work with more teachers.
Yeah.
And so our unique situation, this program had two different principals because it was housed. There's like a K4 program at a K6 campus, and then there was the 5-8 part of it was at a middle school campus. So there was two different principals that I was working with, and just being there and like being a dependable person that they could turn to when like things got at their craziest and most like chaotic. It was so important to making this all come together and work. And I think it was Tyler that was talking about, some of his tips for like forming those relationships. And he had this really funny story about taking a phone call from one of the principals.
Yeah.
Or, something he was like fishing. I can't remember what he was doing. But I was laughing when I was listening to that because, there were times I was like at the dog park, watching my dog run around, and my phone would ring, and, it was one of the principals, one of the assistant principals, calling to ask me a question like, how do you, in Google Classroom, how do you make a specific assignment for just 3 students? And I'm like, I hope I'm like doing this off of memory right now.
Yeah.
So I'm like trying to do this stuff, but like doing that for her that like I think really helped that build that relationship. Is like I showed her like, hey, like if you need something, call me, I will be there for you, the smallest thing. And that like it really kind of blew my mind. Like I don't think I quite understood until I was in that situation, like how helpful that was. And then how different, right? Because like every principal is so different in what they value and the things that are important and what they prioritize. Because the other principal was like 4:30, no phone, like we're not having phone calls after 4:30. The things he prioritized and what he valued was completely different than like the way that than her vibe. And so like just realizing that, and then like spending the time and getting to know like what makes these people tick, and like what are the things that I can do for these individual personalities that are going to help them help them want me to succeed in this, and like want me there working with their teachers. That I think that was huge, and something that I really want to keep in mind and take back in this coming year. If I'm going out to other schools, like how can it's not going to be a replication, but like what are those things I can take with me? How can I be more proactive than I was in previous years about really reaching out to and forming those relationships with those principals? So that I think that was a huge part, and maybe not something you think about when you're like a new coach. I'm not sure that that's always top of mind, especially like if you're at a school, if you're a tech coach for a specific school, then you kind of have that those natural times you see those principals, right? You're passing by or you're in meetings, but like in my position, it's at the district level. So, I mean, unless you proactively set aside that time or reach out to people, you're not going to see them. Like you're not really in their eye line. You're not really on their mind. They have their day-to-day things that they're doing. And so you really have to, I think, really think about creative ways that you can form those relationships.
Yes, I love it. I'm a big preacher of forming the relationship with admin. Okay, and Roxy, I'm going to ask you about one more thing that I'm just curious if you feel like this contributed. You have a data studio where you are collecting kind of all of the work that teachers were doing in coaching cycles, so that could kind of be like shared and repurposed in some way across the district. Am I remembering that correctly? And if so, could you please clarify and fill in the holes of what it is I'm trying to think about here?
Yeah, it was. Although I would say I didn't. It's funny you mentioned that. I kind of forgot. I didn't use that last year. That wasn't something that I added to last year. In the previous year, when I had just started trying to do coaching cycles with teachers, it was something that I had set up so that as we went through these coaching cycles, I would add it to that data studio once I watched a million videos and learned how to use data studio.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the idea was that it would be this like collection of like lesson ideas or resources that then we could like sort by, maybe grade level or by like challenge area. So if other teachers, were also looking for ways to like have their students collaborate more, right? Like maybe you could filter it by like collaboration ideas. So that was the idea with that. It's something I'd love to definitely get back to next year. It didn't quite fit in with what was going on this year. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the potential for that is really awesome. And I don't even remember who I got. Someone on Twitter, I'm sure, shared something similar they were doing. And so that was why I think I had created that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can't do everything, right? So like you have to divide and conquer, focus on the big rocks. So I totally hear you on that. But anyway, I do think that could be something really cool, like a cool way for other coaches who, like to your point, sometimes just like word of mouth and letting admin know what's going on. Like that could be a powerful resource if someone else is thinking about like how to help spread the word. Listeners, hang on for just a few seconds to 1 minute for us. We're going to break for a quick break from our sponsors.
Looking for a program that reaches all teachers in learning new tools to integrate in their lessons? Edu Badges is the answer. Edu is an anytime, anywhere badging program that is designed to take bite-sized tools for instruction and teach teachers how to use them. Edu has received the ISTE Seal of Alignment for Educator Standards And each badge in our expanding library is aligned to the ISTE standards and the SAMR model. Learn more about the program that teachers call addicting at forward-edge.net/edubadges. Instructional coaches support teachers, students, administrators, and really everyone in the district. In fact, research shows that instructional coaching is one of the most impactful forms of professional development that results in improved teacher instruction and student achievement. But who is supporting the coach? Forward Edge provides multiple year-long mentorship options recommended by the Google for Education Certified Coach Program to help you gain the valued support you need as an instructional coach. Visit forward-edge.net to start giving PD to the ultimate PD providers. Welcome back to the Restart Recharge podcast. I'm Justin Thomas. We have Dr. Katie Ritter and also Roxy Thompson joining us in here today for this episode. And Roxy, we were talking a little bit about how you are building that your kind of coaching team here. But as someone that you are now building that coaching program from scratch, and now you're having another coach coming in, what are you looking forward to taking into this upcoming school year? And what are some things that maybe you would ditch?
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely think, we talked about the admin relationships. I definitely want to keep that front of mind, moving into this next year. And I think luckily now I have at least those two principals that I already have this relationship with, right? So
Big time.
it's definitely a good place to start. Like, hey, remember all that great work I did when you were managing the DLP? How can I help you out now and with all the rest of your teachers that are teaching in the physical classroom. So definitely that. One of the more interesting things that I think has come out of this is the idea of what virtual coaching can look like. Outside of the DLP, outside of when it's forced on people during lockdowns and pandemic. It's something I've really gotten interested in and kind of been doing some research and looking around at is what are people doing and, how are people using virtual coaching and what they've learned through COVID, and how can we kind of add that to the toolbox and as an option now that we're back in classrooms. And so I've started doing some just signups, where teachers can sign up for virtual coaching sessions. And it's been really interesting just first of all, that teachers are willing to sign up for a virtual coaching session now. I don't know that would have ever happened before, COVID and lockdown happened. I mean, they know how to share their screen, right? Which is half the battle when you're trying to do technology coaching. But, when you're the tech coach at a district level in a large school district, there's just no way that you can physically drive out and get to everyone, right?
Yeah.
There's just no way. And I think there's a lot of potential for saving some of that driving time when the task makes sense, right? So if you're talking about modeling something for a classroom, or there's certain things when it makes more sense, to be there in person helping that teacher. But I do think there are some times when it makes a lot of sense to just jump onto a Google Meet, and walk through things oh, you want help creating a digital, choice board for your students? Awesome. Let's pop into a collaborative document together and let's brainstorm. So I think that's really interesting. Part of it too, I think, is because I really enjoy it. I know there's some people that were couldn't wait to get back to being in person and, wanted to be in the office and having their office birthday parties and all those drop by, stop in and talk to people. But I don't know if it's because I am a proud introvert, but I have found that I really enjoyed a lot of these things that came out of the being in this virtual space. I think for some teachers it's a nice step in if you're a little bit nervous about the idea of coaching. Not having someone in your physical classroom, it's kind of private. No one even has to know you're talking to a coach, right? You just pop on and you have to worry about if your classroom's looking clean or, whatever. And I think that can sometimes lower the anxiety for some people, is having that virtual option. So I'm really hoping to see how that can help me not just reach different people, but I also think maybe some people that otherwise wouldn't have wanted to meet in person, see if that maybe helps draw them in and shows them hey, I can be helpful if you just want to bounce some ideas off of me, or if there's something you want me to show you. And then once they feel more comfortable, maybe that's a foot in the door, into their classroom.
I love it.
So
And I
that's
feel like be
yeah.
prepared to be penciled in for another episode next school year. All about virtual coaching.
Yep.
Spoiler
Making the note
alert.
now.
Yeah.
Oh, is it on the horizon? I know. I was looking at
It is now.
FETC. Yeah. I was looking at the FETC lineup from, the one that just happened. I'm like, oh man, it looks like there is some good sessions on, people talking about this. So maybe next year, because I'm hoping to go to my first FETC conference. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear what people are doing in that space.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like I'm going to stop myself now before we go down a rabbit hole and like totally off topic on this
a 4-hour podcast.
I know. Okay, so unfortunately, loyal listeners, this last piece landed on me and I'm not near as entertaining. Justin's throwing his pencil down. Okay, so we end every episode with top 3 tips. So Roxy, what are your, I'll try to do Justin justice here. What are your top 3 tips for someone who is on their own coaching island trying to expand their program?
So the first one, I am probably singing to the choir here, or preaching to the choir. What do you do to a choir? I don't know.
We do whatever.
Both,
we do whatever you want here on this podcast. Yeah, we make up all of our own sayings around here.
Is your personal learning network. I cannot tell you like how important it was for every step of this process, from first integrating technology into my own classroom as a teacher, to stepping out and becoming a coach, to trying to expand this program. Like every step of the way, the reason I feel like I stuck with it and had ideas to bring to my district was because of that personal learning network. And, I'm a huge Twitter fan, but I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, and that's fine. Whatever it is that you feel comfortable with, maybe it's, just a group of teachers that you know personally that you meet at the coffee shop with in person, right? But I just think that's such an important, I think it's so important for specifically ed tech coaches, because oftentimes you are one of the only people at your school. And sometimes you just need someone to be like, am I crazy? Like, am I crazy for thinking this? And you need someone to go like, no, you're not crazy. This is real. Like the things that you're seeing are real. The things that you want to do, like, are valuable. Like your ideas are good. Like stick with it. So that would be number 1. Number 2 is, if at all, if you can find someone to champion or collaborate with. I think that's really important. And, oftentimes as the ed tech coach, you're not the person that makes those decisions about what gets launched or what stays, or, what things really get the backing they need to have staying power. And so if you can get someone that has some sort of power, if you can get them behind you, that is incredibly helpful. Like I had my boss who was the director, and it wasn't so much that she like was gung-ho about coaching herself, but she really, really liked and believed in me and knew it was something that I was really passionate about. And so that was enough, like, to get her behind it. So if you can get a champion, or just look for people to collaborate with. And Katie, I know you wrote that like blog post recently. I was thinking about that when I was thinking about these tips, and that one about Schitt's Creek and the lessons you can take. And one of them was, about like thinking outside the box about people you can collaborate with. And I think that's such an amazing point. The other day I had someone sign up for a coaching session. It was like social workers. And originally they just want to know, like, how do I organize my Google Drive, right? And then it turned into this conversation about Google Classroom and how they have these classrooms and they have their own Google websites. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea our social workers were like doing all these things and using technology in all these like really interesting ways. And they wanted to make like how-to videos for all the other social workers. And it really blew my mind. And so I think, never count out like certain groups of people or certain departments because you think like they're not going to be interested or that's not important to them. I think there's a lot of interesting ways that you can find people to collaborate with and like show how useful that this role can be. It's not just classroom teachers. I mean, those are obviously like, the first people we think of, but this can really touch like every part of the organization.
Yeah.
So like be open-minded about what that can look like. And then I think the final one is just like be brave. and push yourself outside of your own comfort zone. I think because, first of all, it keeps you in a position where you can empathize with other teachers, right? So like try new things. And I don't just mean like in the education sphere, things outside. Like I will give you an example. I have my little husky puppy that I got last summer, and we did like a beginner training class with her. And any of your listeners have ever had a husky puppy, but oh my goodness. It's a lot. And so in this training class, it's basically every week of going and failing at things in front of a group of other people. And it's hard, right? It's hard to learn new things, and it's hard to do that in front of other people. And it's hard to be vulnerable and to keep going at it. And I think if you do that as a coach in whatever area interests you, I think that really helps you remember when you're coaching people, like what that feels like. And the be brave part is just like do things maybe that you normally wouldn't do, and that looks different for everyone. For me, it's just like speaking up in meetings sometimes, like saying something, because that always makes me a little bit nervous. It's not really something that I naturally do, but the more you do it, the more you get comfortable with it. And I think, you have ideas, right? Like if you're a tech coach, it obviously means you're passionate about education. It means you're passionate about helping people, and like you have good ideas. Like believe in your ideas, speak up when you have an opportunity to speak up, and plant some seeds, because you never know when it's going to grow, right? So don't be scared of your own voice.
Oh my
when you
gosh.
get the opportunity.
I love literally everything you just said so much. It's amazing. Amazing advice. I can also personally relate to the puppy story. Do not have a husky, but my little Sasha, man, she's a doozy. So I feel you on that.
I'm gonna start like a podcast for like coaches and their dogs or something, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be perfect.
Love it. Justin's bringing his cat though.
I'm bringing my cat. Yeah. My
I don't know. Do we let him
14-year-old
join?
cat.
We'll leave it up. Yeah, we'll keep it open to all sorts of pets.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
He yells at me all the time anyway, so.
Yeah. And then I do just want to like take a quick second, because we haven't shared it on the podcast yet, but I believe the time this airs and goes live, we will have already shared it, or we'll be really close to sharing it. So I'll keep it brief. But to your first point about like finding your PLN, we here at Forward Edge have kind of crafted and designed a PLN specifically for instructional coaches. So it's not just for tech coaches. It's really kind of all encompassing coaches, called the EDU Coach Collective. So for the sake of, I don't know if we will have officially announced this yet or not. I won't go into more details, but at least for now, follow us on social media, and to kind of learn what that's going to look like. We are at EDU Coach Network on all the things.
All the things.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and the TikTok.
The TikTok. Uh-oh.
So we're everywhere. And then you can find the link to sign up for our newsletter too, with lots of great coaching resources that is going out every other week, every other Tuesday. So just a little plug for that. I wanted to share that. But I think that's all the questions that we have. Roxy, you have just dropped like so much amazing coaching knowledge that thank you so much for coming on the podcast for your first time.
First time, yeah.
Yeah, because there's going to be more.
You might become a regular occurrence here, right?
Yeah, I know. Or
With
you
everything.
can just take my seat.
But no, we need you. You did a fantastic job on the top 3 tips. So you probably did better than me. All right. So thank you again, Roxy, for joining us on the episode here today. And as Katie mentioned, we will probably see you at a future podcast unless we scared you away here on being on this one. I don't know.
Not at all.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Roxy. Remind you can tune in next time for another episode here on the Restart Recharge podcast. Also want to mention that as this is airing, we have just a couple of days left to register for the virtual coaches camp. So If you are interested in joining us virtually, make sure that you register quick, because that registration deadline is fast approaching. There is still a little bit of time coming up to register for Cincinnati. So if you are going to join us virtually, make sure you do that quickly. If you're planning on coming in and visiting us here in Cincinnati, you have a little bit more time. But we hope to see you at FE Coach Camp.
We do. So almost missed my cue. So be sure to subscribe to Restart Recharge wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok now at RR Coach Cast. And of course, don't forget to follow our wonderful guest, Roxy. Roxy, you want to tell us one more time your handle for people to find you?
Yeah, so I'm at Roxy, ROSI_Thompson, on both Twitter and Instagram.
And maybe TikTok, but you won't be posting because you can't get it.
But I won't see it.
Yeah.
So sorry.
That's all right. But hey, you can also feel to reach out to us and let us know what topics you want us to discuss as well on all of those social media places.
So press the restart button.
Recharge your coaching batteries and leave feeling equipped and inspired to coach fearlessly with the Restart Recharge podcast,
a Tech Coach collective.
Which we do need to make a TikTok on that sometime.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I will do
love
this.
that you just said that. That's amazing.
Yeah, I started laughing today when I listened to the one that just came out, because we recorded it so long ago that I forgot we even said that we just made a TikTok, whatever. So we do have it now.
Do have it.
I still don't know what you're supposed to do on the TikTok.
You're so tasty. Yeah, I can't. No, my boss is so excited. Like, she was so proud. Like, Mama Bear proud when I told her I was gonna do this podcast. She's like, look at you.
Okay, we ready?
Yeah.
Okay, I start, right? Why do I feel like
do
I
start,
have
yeah.
never done this before?
Because we haven't done it for like 2 months, it seems like.
Bye.